It worked.
Yeah, Matt Scott. I don't know if you remember him from
Oh
Avocado.
yeah.
He was on, and he was like, I was like, here, let me see if I can get you to join so you can help me.
Yeah.
He did. So he popped on for a sec. So Jenna Lee and I are jumping in here with some messy action. This is new experience for us doing, well, at least for me or for a while, of doing a combined live on Instagram. So here we are. Um, that being said, I think uh, that her and I could use a little bit of grounding, tapping in, and we'll invite anybody else to come in with that with us. And you can make sure your feet are on the floor if you have that possibility. Close your eyes and just take a couple really just deep letting go breaths. Just let yourself kind of melt. And then on your next breath, really witness how it feels coming into your body. Perhaps on the inhale through your nose, it's nice and cool. Perhaps on the exhale through your mouth, it feels a little warm. And perhaps just drop into the rhythm of your own breath a little deeper, a little more. Just really witness how you breathe, how the breath feels in your body, how it feels coming out of your body. And on the next two breaths, the invitation to just breathe in as much as you can. And then once you think you're full, just add a little extra. And on your exhale, letting it all out. And once you think you're empty, perhaps a little extra release. When I do this, and I do this with my clients, I really have them tap in to their roots down into Mother Earth and up through their crown to source energy. So that invitation is there for you as well. And when you feel it's right for you, come on back in, open your eyes. Well, I don't know how to tell if anybody's watching either, so that's fun. And anyway, I feel like I'm super close because that's where my desk is. I'm gonna just move this a little bit so I can stand not so close. All right. So yeah, so Jenny, do you want to dive right in? Kind of, you can either start from the beginning and end with the end, or start with the end and go to the beginning, however feels
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah. I know lately we've been talking about, and you and I have both been feeling this huge energetic shifts that have been happening. And it's getting us to kind of reflect on where we've come from to where we are. And yeah, I think a lot more people, maybe we've been on this journey for a while, but a lot of people are kind of getting to that point where they're at an impasse, where they really feel like they need to take action on what they truly desire in their life, what they believe that their purpose is. And that's going to require them to let go of some things and to really make some changes in their life to make that happen. And so we thought it would be maybe helpful to share a bit of our stories on the process that we have gone through and continue to go through to create that alignment with our desire and our purpose in our own life, so that, we can show up fully and we can be who we know that we're meant to be in this lifetime, that we're not living according to somebody else's expectations or within their limits of how we should be. And so, yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation. And I don't know if that sparks anything within you right now, Joni.
Yeah, I like the part of that that really give me goosebumps is a huge part of that journey back to yourself is really letting go of all the things you've kind of picked up along the way that weren't really yours to hold in the first place, but you tried them on for a while, I guess, along this journey. And in my experience and the way I travel through this timeline is really experiential leadership, right? Like I have to go through it to teach it. And as I've done that, it's, there's lots of bumps along the way, but there's lots of perceived judgment, which I now understand going through like some subconscious belief reprogramming, things like that. It's really like, it's all just what we think. Like we create the world for what is inside of our head and our heart, and the things we're holding on to. So that's letting go of those expectations, and then the invitation to really invite yourself back in, right? Like, because I feel like we also lose those pieces of us along the way that haven't been favored amongst the people that we're in along our journey. So
yeah, it's an ongoing thing for me. Like even in the last few weeks, I believe with the heightened energy of the eclipse season, I've been able to see things about myself, about who my authentic self is, that I hadn't really connected with or recognized in a long time. And allowing those parts of me to be seen more and to just flow out of me more naturally, because I've removed all barriers to what that is now. And a lot of that would be, fear of judgment, or recognizing that when I was put in maybe a survival mode and I needed to suppress those parts of me, that is over, and I'm in a place where I can express that. And it's actually, not only can I, it's beneficial that I do that, and it's required of me to do that in order to create the type of life that I want.
yeah. It kind of makes me think too. I mean, I haven't gotten to the end of this journey, obviously, yet, and so it's interesting to see how it will all evolve. But I feel like like I do a lot of work with universal law. It's really brought me back into spirituality for myself, and along with doing the Reiki energy stuff. But one law that like comes up for me right now is that the law of polarity, and it's like you can't have one without the other, right? You can't have the front of the book without the back of the book. But once we have enlightenment, like then we have greater, what I've been calling endarkenment, right? So like we feel things more on both ends of the pole. The pole doesn't shift to lightness, right? It shifts from the middle, and we have more awareness of the darkness and the lightness. And I feel like in a journey that's really heavy at different times as to where we are in that. And I feel like part of what you and I do is we help people find tools to move through those spaces into where how they want to feel a little more quickly.
Yeah, I think part of that is, like you said, in the letting go. And it's not like, it's almost like a letting go of how you thought you should feel.
Yeah.
And really just accepting where you're at and loving whatever comes up in the moment, whether that's a perceived positive or negative or light or dark, just acknowledging that it's part of that experience. And like you said, it's necessary to be able to feel the full spectrum of the experience. Without the low lows, you can't feel the high highs. And so I think a lot of people, and what we're moving from, is living within a very narrow scope of polarity. We're very near the center, and we don't feel anything, or people might think that that's where you want to be. And I don't know if that's like stoicism kind of, right? Like you don't want to feel anything too great, and you don't want to feel anything too low. And maybe that's where you'll find happiness, is just in the neutrality, when really you're kind of selling yourself short in that. And so it's an expansive thing to be able to feel the great joys, and also recognize that there's a lot of shadow and darkness too. And it's not about getting rid of the dark, but it's getting rid of what you expected life to be and what you expected happiness should feel like. And yeah, just acceptance, I think, of both.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great change there, right, in the darkness, because it's the part that doesn't feel the greatest. So if we can allow that to move through us in a way, like I think a lot of the disease really comes from holding on to that kind of
Holding on to or resisting.
or resisting, yeah. And but like, yeah, so manifesting, perpetuating that kind of negative side of it, like in a way almost, not that everybody's in victim mode, but in lack of a better term, don't realize you have the choice to move out of it, right? Like, oh, this is really hard. And like, you can only see that for a long time unless you make a different choice to move, like, and have some tools to help you move, right? Like, feel it deeply. That's what I always say, like, feel it deeply. But really, emotions, like real true emotions, are like 90 seconds, right? So like, give yourself a break, like take 90 seconds or schedule it in your planner for later in the day when you do have the time. But um just like give yourself that permission to feel it so that the energy can transmute, right? Like that's really what, where energy healing comes in. Or like even action, just like if you want to not talk woo, right, it's like action is really just transmutation of energy. It's like you took an idea and you changed. And there's
Mm-hmm.
always tools, there's tools, because sometimes it's really hard down there to get to see the other side, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it feels like it lasts a whole lot longer than 90 seconds. And I think that's where those tools come in of how can I release this, like acknowledge exactly and feel it deeply.
Yeah.
And then how can I release it? And some of those tools, and I'll probably, maybe you can share some of the ones that you share too, but a huge tool that I use in my own practice and I share with my clients is gratitude, because gratitude and grief, or gratitude and, you know, whatever, that lower, the victimhood cannot coexist. And so even just tuning into a gratitude practice, tuning back into everything that you can be grateful for in the moment, and every little thing too. And sometimes I find that, like, when I'm in that mindset of finding what I can be grateful for throughout a day, I'll be driving down the street and I'll literally see someone on the sidewalk doing like a weird dance, or just laughing to themselves or smiling. And I'm like, that's the thing. Like, okay, that's really cool that I could experience that right now. And I'm really grateful that I'm here witnessing somebody else's joy, even if I feel like there's not a ton in my own life right now, you know? And I think so. Gratitude's a huge practice. And the other one is just finding love and acceptance and grace for yourself, and being like, wow, I really feel terrible today, and that's okay. Like, I'm going to find some love for the way that I feel, and that's totally human, and that's my experience. And that even that shift in a second can just, it could feel like a ton of bricks releasing off your shoulders.
Yeah, it's like you opened up the dam, you let the resistance go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things for people, especially new to affirmations and that they feel funky. It's really like, I'm human. Like, can you say that in the mirror? Like, it's hard for people. Like, it gets weird, but it's like most people can believe that, you know. I I'm not sure about how many aren't human here, but there may be some. But most people can believe that they are human in this timeline. And but yeah, I think that's a great, like, coming back. The other thing I would add to that, I think those are both like really beautiful, is that piece of safety, right? Um, is somehow finding that way to believe that you are safe, like even in the shit, like you're still safe. And that's a practice too, I think. And I think that that's like a deep part of the work I do too, is bringing people back to that connection of either to themselves, to source, you know, somewhere that's a little bit outside of themselves, the universe, with this idea that like they signed up for this journey and they are safe along it, even when it is at its worst, you know. And gratitude, when you're thinking about gratitude, I also think about that perspective, right? That people that have chose this journey to show up in the hardest places, right? Like in places where there's not enough food or no shelter or addiction, you know, things like that, that they've showed up in that way to show us the reflection of the difference of that, you know, polarity there, like what that looks like versus not that, and how much harder that journey is for them, and being just grateful for that, you know, is sometimes huge too. um do you want to share a little bit about like your personal journey, like what has brought you to where you are now in your professional work?
Sure. Um, yeah, I worked a very high stress job planning corporate events for almost 10 years. It's actually ranked, I think, on Forbes list like top 5 most stressful jobs in the world. And it definitely took a toll on my body. There's parts of it that I could find enjoyment in, probably like the finished product.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took a huge toll on my health to the point where I needed to have surgery. They found a tumor in my abdomen, and I had to have surgery, and not knowing what it was until they were able to do a biopsy on it. And I was diagnosed with a form of autoimmune, and I knew. I just knew it was my lifestyle. It was not my lifestyle as much. I worked out. I was beginning to get into meditation and yoga and all those things, but it was the lifestyle of living in fight or flight, day in, day out, being really disconnected from myself, who I am. It was playing a completely different role from who I actually am in life. And I felt that people at work they had no idea who I was, really. And so it's like that complete disconnection was a huge source on top of the actual stress of the role. And so once I was diagnosed with that, and I kind of got into my own research of like, well, how can I fix this? Like, I don't want to live with this diagnosis. I really got into integrative health, connecting the emotions with the body, not just the health, like the food, but the emotional impact on my body. And that just opened up a huge rabbit hole where then I got into more of the spiritual side of things, because dealing with emotions, we can approach it from a psychological perspective and intellectualize the shit out of them, and that doesn't actually change them. And sometimes it can actually ingrain them even more deeply, because now we're just solidifying this story around them. So I got more into the spiritual side because I'm like, okay, I completely understand why I am the way I am, like what emotions I'm carrying, what patterns and beliefs that I'm holding about all of these situations, but how can I shift that? And so that's where it was a really game changer for me to get into the energetics, to understand how to move energy, that we are energetic beings, and how to work with that. And those 10 years was actually spent working for a science company. And so I was coming at it from a very, very logical place, and was able to find the science to back it all up too. And so that's where I kind of nerd out about it, is teaching people about energy. And this is actually grounded in science. We just aren't really taught about it growing up. And it's just as important, if not more important, than the way that you treat your physical body, because over 90% of energetic or psychosomatic symptoms actually will show up as physical symptoms. And so when you get to that root cause, I think it's easier. It's easier. Like, how hard is it to sit in therapy for 10 years and intellectualize and completely understand and have this self-awareness? And it's hard work. Whereas you can move energy at the speed of thought. You can move energy that's been sitting there your entire life in one session. And so it just felt so empowering to find this outlet and to find this new way of approaching things in my life that I was seeing just transformational and rapid growth in who I am and how I was showing up. And yeah, it's been exciting ever since. And I love helping people through the same, because it can be a hard journey on your own if you're trying to find the thing that works for you, to make those changes in your life to align with your desire and your purpose, and to move out of a fight or flight or a high cortisol way of living. And I'm excited to help people find that for themselves and help them through that process a whole lot quicker than it took me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I just, one thing kind of like sprang into there for me. It's like, I feel like a lot of times when we're going through the emotions in a logical way, um, there's like, again, it's like a little bit of that victim. I don't like to, like, I don't, if you have a different word for that, then tell me, but it's like disempowerment, right? Because it's like still something that happened to you.
Yeah.
And that you had no like perceived control over, right? And
Yeah.
which it may feel like that, or but still moving it through changes the way your brain even thinks about how the experience was. And to me, that's what's so cool, is that as we do this work, we do the energetic work, we do the emotion work, and we move it through the body, and we look at it like from the rational side, because it is still important that we keep the brain involved, right? I think. And we can go back and look at that experience after we've moved that energy of how it all got wrapped up as in it, and our perception during the trauma, or what parts of it that we held on to. And then we can go back and look at it from the healed side, right? And then we can go back and be like, oh, what else could have been true in this situation, right? And what happened earlier in my life that I manifested this situation, which is even a like more of a squirrel, right? Like, it's really crazy. But the cool thing is we can heal in that same way, right? We can go back and like heal it before it happened, and then heal it for the future, and like change how we show up. And that's a choice that I think both of you and I think is really important, is like showing up for our purpose, showing up for our desire, and allowing that to happen, instead of staying in that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a thing around being conscious of the misalignment that's in your life. And that's almost more painful, more detrimental to your health, that when you become conscious of it, that you continue to choose misalignment.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it is so important to choose alignment. And there are different types of pain, there are different risks involved. And there's pain and risk on both sides. But they're on, when you're choosing conscious misalignment consciously, you're actually choosing a prison. Whereas when you're choosing the unknown of what it is, like who am I, what it is to express myself differently, there's a huge unknown, and that's so expansive because anything is possible. Whereas when you choose to stay in misalignment, you know the fate, you're living it.
Yeah. Something this brings up for me, too, is this idea of, which is hot topic for lots of reasons right now, but it's just this idea of living in like your feminine or your masculine, right? And I really feel like, I mean, I can only speak to being a woman. I can't speak to being a man, other than I can see how that ebb and flow works for different parts of what we want. And it's really like the feel of a pull versus the feel of a push, I feel like. And I feel like that's like a feminine way to move towards your goals, perhaps. I mean, and maybe not always feminine, but it's a way somebody can be in their feminine and move towards their goals, is to be in alignment with their desire. Like, desire feels very feminine to me. But again, we need all parts, whether we're male, female, whatever. Like, as a human, you need that ebb and flow, because sometimes you got to get stuff done and sometimes you got to receive, right? And that is also just part of that healing journey, I think, is learning um, the like the pull versus the push.
Yeah.
And like you said, the space to feel versus taking action all the time. Like we can take space to feel for 90 seconds, but we take 90 minutes and talk about it. Like it's going to be a drastically different thing. The 90-second feel is going to really improve, like change the experience, change it, alchemize, transmute, right? Like you were saying. And so I think that's important. Looking back, I wish I would have known a little more of that when I first started my healing journey, because I didn't really see that part yet either. Sounds like you got pretty quick into it. It took me a lot of years of walking that. My personal journey and my professional journey kind of walked side by side, but personally, like there was a time where I was really just stuck on the couch. I had a 2.5-year-old, almost 3-year-old, almost 1-year-old. And I just remember like I was still nursing the 1-year-old. So it wasn't like I could still do that, but like where it was a real struggle sometimes to even get up and like feed my 2-year-old, because I was just so drained. Like now I can see it as a drain. And then I just thought I was sick. And really getting more clarity on that for me was jumping into like, oh, I have Hashimoto's. So again, autoimmune, but now knowing what I know now, I know that's a manifestation of the things that were going on in my life during that time. And also adrenal fatigue, right? And again, it's just being a person high achieving, like you were in the corporate world. And I think we're both like, and maybe this wasn't your worth, but I know my worth was tied around a lot of what I did, how I could get it done, how much I could do. Like I can be a mom of 2 kids, nursing, driving 2 hours to work and working 10 hour days, no problem, right? Like that's not healthy for, it's not probably good for anybody, but for me especially. And then moving into that, learning about how nutrition changed the body, right? Well, nutrition does change the body. It changes energetics, right? Like, because we're putting different kinds of foods in there, but also becomes empowerment issue, right? Like I choose to eat this way, which is really hard for people when they're changing nutrition, but it's like, I choose to eat this way because I want to feel that way, right? And it changes. There's an empowerment piece there too. And then still along my journey, I would still have times where like I'd be doing pretty good, and then I would just be like down with the flu for 4 days, right? And I'd be like, what the heck? Why am I getting sick all the time? And then I come to realize that was really like a Hashimoto's flare for me. And then just the rest of it was like very serendipitous. I went and I learned how myofascial worked by getting it done by John Barnes, trainer in Sedona. So that was like a magical experience for me. And as soon as I could, I got into a class and learned how to do that, which is just a different way. Like it's a physical, hands-on way touching the skin, but it moves energy, right? And it can help guide where it's stuck in people's bodies. And then I can help teach them how to tune into that and give themselves permission, And then Reiki found me too. Like all of a sudden, someone I'd been doing some other intuitive work with, she's like, oh, I'm going to do Reiki classes online during COVID. And I was like, sign me up. Like, that's no brainer. I want to do that. And that changed my life and my health, right? Like that attunement and that changing the way energy works and how we can alchemize and how we can move that was really the change in the way my energy is, and then universal laws were all wrapped into that same time, and learning that like I'm responsible for myself and it's guided by divineness, and it's, there's like a set of rules, like even though it's wooey, like there is a set of ways that the universe works, and which brought me safety. Like, oh, this is just the way it is, right? Like this journey, I signed up for this. And but also along that whole way, I've always been really driven to serve people that are there with me and enlighten and help them understand what I've learned. It's not for everybody, I get that, but it's for a lot of people. And I have learned that the more you talk about it, the more there's more people than you expect that are like, oh, that resonates, because it resonates within them in a way that they didn't even know was there because they've never accessed it before, right? I feel like. And also like then you're like, I stayed in that woo for a long time. I'm like, oh, Reiki's woo, Reiki's spiritual, Reiki's out here. And then I was like thinking more about it and learning universal laws and things like that. And I was like, woo's really quantum physics. And we just don't really understand that yet because most of us, our brains haven't opened to how quantum physics work until we have like experiences that aren't 3D, right? Like, and once we have those and we see different connections and different ways that the world comes together, we're like, oh, yes. But I think it's deep in most of us. And once we just get a little like pull, it like opens up a whole thing for people.
Yeah, and I think it's about hearing a message that resonates with you. And your message probably resonates with different people than perhaps my message resonates with, right? And so we're activating that in different people. And so I think it might just take you hearing that message from the right person where it finally just lands, where you're like, oh. And so I think we all do have that within us, but we're at different points. We need to hear it at different points from the right person, the right messenger for it to actually land and activate what it needs to activate for us to kind of start to take action.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty and like of having so many different modalities for healing, right?
Yeah.
Is because every person on the journey, well, first of all, everybody's already healed, right? If we can come from it from that point of view, it's really interesting. But there is like that does exist right now because you like everything is now. So you can be healed right now, you know, and coming from that point of view, but just like the beauty of everybody getting like as the conveyor belt of the Akashic information is coming through, everybody gets a different piece, right? That drops down their chute is how I feel. And it's made for them to then go serve those people that also need that same, you know, kind of information. And it's yeah, at different points in different time, people are going to buy into nutrition changes or energetic changes or spiritual changes, and it'll tripwire, I guess, kind of, you know, the journey, I think.
Yeah. And but that's where I'm seeing this is being accelerated, that part. I'm seeing that happening at like a quicker rate than ever before, where it's the shift is happening and we're kind of being left at the train station, right? You got to get on, or what's the alternative, right? Like, and so I think a lot of people are at that tipping point where they're getting on board and they're wanting to make shifts in their life. And I think that it's super exciting and that we're ushering in this new level of consciousness, which is where we're coming from the 3D, where it's very mental and psychological, where we're just stuck in our heads all day and we're trying to intellectualize the shit out of everything. We're moving into the era where everything's energetic and you're in tune with what's going on in your own body, you're in tune with what's going on with others around you, and we have to learn how to lead from that place too. We have to learn how to operate from that place, and I think that's a really exciting shift that I feel we're in it right now. It's happening.
Yeah, 100% there with that too. I would say probably over the last 6 months, like really wearing that leader hat has come through for me too. And being able to even talk like openly about this, like energetics and stuff on a, you know, one-on-one, I'm really good at it, you know, think again, you're really good at this too, is like somehow we're connected in a way where we receive information that seems to just magically appear for us. And when you're one-on-one, it's a lot easier because it just seems like, at least for me, I shouldn't speak for you, but like I'm more able to explain it in the way that resonates or like that person needs it at that moment. Mm-hmm. Versus when you do things like this, it's a little like for me, it's a little nerve-wracking, first of all, just to show up for this amount of time and fully open, like not orchestrated information coming out, but also I don't know, I get lost, and this happens to me too. A little bit of a squirrel here. Like on a bigger platform where I'm addressing a lot of people and people that I don't know their beliefs or the way they might react. And that's been a huge shift in leadership, right? Because it's not really it's not like about me, it's about how I serve, and it's about the information that's coming through me. And that's a part of my healing is like my validation comes from within inside me, not from the other people that I'm addressing. And again, they can take it, they can leave it, they can come back to it in 5 years, right? Like, but maybe it was the little seed that needed to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. I often go into even what even one-on-ones, but even like today was the intention of being a clear channel, and that what needs to be said is said, and that it resonates with whoever needs to hear it. And so I make that intention so that I am not applying my filters to what's coming through, that I'm not trying to minimize it or make it more palatable or however you want to put it. But I just, yeah, it's a very much an exercise of trust, to trust in what we're receiving, and trust that we're being asked to share it, and trust that others want to hear it or need to hear it.
Yeah. I had this uh, other experience the other day that was kind of like this, and it was, I was, I, the topic eludes me now of what we were talking about, but it was really like that validation is internal, but when you do speak it out, um, like it changes the collective vibration of that thing as well, even if it's not witnessed or brought to logic, right? Like us speaking that everybody is safe and protected all the time sends that out and builds collectively, even just mentioning it. And it opens different awareness within that collective energy.
Yeah, I see that as like a macro version of what happens on the micro, of when you take actions. It's like when you feel the pull and then you take action on that pull, that's creating that trust, that's creating that energy, that's creating that rise in your own consciousness, of creating that new pattern, that new loop of trusting what comes from within and taking action on it. And we're just talking about it perhaps right now at a macro level, but it's the same energy, it's the same vibration of what that can generate in your own life.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, like maybe share how you're serving these days and how people can find you.
Yeah. I'm really feeling a strong pull towards applying this, I guess, my gifts to business, to helping people usher in the energetics into their business. Again, because it's shifting the trains at the train station. And I think it's so important to move out of that just strictly mental and psychological construct, and that force that we just create business in, that perpetuates the high cortisol, the stress, and moving into the energetics of it, and finding that alignment within your business as perhaps a business owner, but also as leaders in business, as a business perhaps that's out there to serve people for the highest good. Like, what is in alignment with that and what isn't? What are you still doing that's operating from the 3D, the very mental constructs, that is asking to be shifted into a higher way of being, a higher way of serving, greater alignment? And yeah, so being able to see those energetics very clearly and help and consult with people on what that is in their business, and making those shifts. And again, that's just, I guess, business is kind of the macro of how it's showing up in personal life too. And so the same micro and macro, but yeah, just completely making those shifts, finding out what's not in alignment, and helping people heal to that place where they're really confident in the energy that they're giving. And so yeah, you can find me on my website here on Instagram at expert.you. I'm offering 15-minute energetic audits for whether it's personal or business. If you want to hop on a call, I'd love to do that with you. But yeah, I'm just really excited about the changes and the shifts that I feel like we're just in it right now.
Yeah. there was a point a couple years ago, just with all of the unrest and the change, and where I didn't, I've done massive shifting over the last couple years, and I'm sure you have too, just because that's the way it's working. But like I was a little disheartened on just how much I don't know if it feels like greed right now, but like just the way people are selling and the things they're trying to sell and the way they're trying to keep people small, really, like not in good health, not in good mindset, not in good spiritual faith, like, and that divisiveness collectively. And I was really, really pretty disheartened about that for a bit. And then I realized that it is this quickening, right? It's like that moment before birth, and it is like necessary to have that transition, just as a woman becomes a mother, right? Like it is important for that transition to happen. But it doesn't feel great sometimes, and we've already kind of went over that. But it is opening and it is changing, and again, showing up, like you're showing up to help people even in corporations, that as they grow into this like new earth, sort of say, their disgruntledness in that space is probably going to increase, like that friction is out of alignment, right? And so you can go in and help. And I just want to make sure that everybody that's listening to this on replay, she wasn't offering the 15 minutes to me, she was offering it to you. So please sign up for that. Not that you made it sound that way, I just want to pull that plug for you to find that, and maybe they can send you a little DM that's like purpose or something. What would be a good word for them to
send me audit. I'll know what you're talking about,
yeah.
and we'll get you on the right track.
Yeah, so if you're looking for that energetic audit, DM generally audit. All right. Yeah, anything else you want to say about
that? Yeah, I think in the same thread that you were just speaking of, like the veils are lifting, and so those things that we were able to hide behind, the mental constructs or the perfectly crafted marketing, when behind it everything was in shambles and out of alignment, those veils are lifting. And so we're going to be able to see what is and what isn't in alignment, and what is and what isn't for the highest good, and what isn't in integrity or authentic. And so it's kind of about getting your ducks in a row and really just getting honest and doing the work before it's revealed to everyone anyways. And so,
yeah,
and it's not like a fear-based thing. I think it's encouraging. I think it's really encouraging that we're moving into that and we can have a part in it.
Yeah, well, and I think our part in that is really the tools, right? It's like empowerment with the tools, so that you're just like dropped off in the desert off a bus, and the bus takes off and you're there by yourself, right? Like instead you're your water, and you're going to have your GPS, and you're going to have all the things.
Your granola bar. Your granola bar.
Your sunscreen. Don't use sunscreen. Anyways. Yeah.
I mean, I'm curious too to hear what's your biggest thing, and if it's shifted lately, and how you're showing up to serve people.
Yeah. Kind of back to what we were talking about, that I didn't know that number was 90% of physical symptoms, right? Like I hadn't heard that statistic before, but that's what I really resonate with right now. I feel like people that are having physical symptoms or external struggles, like the procrastination and stuckness, or just not feeling right, again, that it's really like not being aligned, but people don't really know that till they know that. And I feel like once we've gotten to the point where we have those external symptoms and issues like pain or sickness, or again, procrastination, stuckness, that we have to address it from all of the sides, right? Like I feel like we really gotta, like, once there is a physical development, then we need to physiologically address that too, with whatever, if that's supplements or movement or meditation, just allowing that space to heal, like really getting in a healing state in all ways. So physically, and then we need to address what was manifesting, right? Like, why was that manifesting for you? So we got to look at that like spiritual piece and the subconscious piece, because really the subconscious job is just to go around confirming what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
And usually we're doing it from like the space of a 6-year-old in a situation that we didn't even understand. And so I feel like if we can unwind that while also just addressing that truly holistically, then that's when we're going to come through the other side in a healing more state, once we are connected to ourselves and source, and, you know, have the tools to move through in a state of like really well-being. And that's where my program, it's called the Flow Method, and I am actively enrolling people in that right now, that 90-day program. And it really encompasses that whole holistic mind, body, spirit, love, energy, and body connection, and really taking people from that place of scarcity, of that sickness, tiredness, into that abundance of energy and time and health. And I'm excited about it. And I start, again, I can tell that my voice changes and my body changes and I start talking fast. But again, it's mostly like, it's to fast track, right? It's to give you the tools that I wish I had the whole time, because if I could have taken all 3 pieces of, or however many that you make that, like mind, body, spirit, or emotions, and moved through it at the same time, I don't know if I would have had the container at the time. But that's the cool thing about having a coach or someone lead you, is they can help you pinpoint you like what's next, right? You don't have to do all the things, but like what's next. And that's where the intuitive piece and the energetic piece come in, is because I feel like in our sphere of work, we can tune into that really, really quickly for those people. But also the magic of holding space energetically is we can shift people out of that flight or fight really fast, right? Like we can get them to that place of safety within minutes sometimes that they haven't been in 20 years. And so that's what's really magical to me about it. Yeah. And so if anybody is interested, I also am doing 15-minute freedom sessions, I'm calling them. And so we really get down to, you know, where you want to go, where you're feeling stuck, and, you know, that gap. What does that gap look like? And so if you DM me Flow, I would get you signed up for that, and love just to connect with anybody that's interested in any of the things that Jenny or I've talked about today. Like, I'm sure she's open for a conversation. I'm open for a conversation. And yeah, but we'd love to see Audit and Jenna Lee and some Flow in Joni's DMs, and so that we can serve you, because that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to say?
No. Thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. And I love that, like you said, we both just like allowing things to flow through us. And I think it guide us to the topics that we're most passionate about, or people that want to hear about the most, or they're dealing with the most right now. And yeah, so thank you for providing that space for us to kind of go there.
Yeah. And thank you for graciously prompting me to do it very quickly. And I appreciate that nudge. And yeah, and just everybody, you know, the way I really want to show up is with curiosity, love, healing, and empowerment. So I hope that out of our conversation today, that was evident, and that everybody knows that that's available to them too. And that abundance of like your desire, your purpose, that's available to you. So yeah. What are you going to do? How are you going to get
You get on the train?
You going to get on the train?
Yeah.
You're going to get off the bus in the desert. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Joni.
Bye-bye.
Bye.